Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We'll get started in just a minute. Make sure that folks who had RSVP'd are not experiencing any tech issues. But as we're waiting to get started, it would be great if you can turn on your camera. If you're able, we'll get started with some introductions from everyone here. And then we'll dive into it in terms of what IE 2030 is about. To get your not only your thoughts but your feedback as we draw on our collective talent and expertise in the region to help improve our region. So I'll start with team members from the Center for Social Innovation who are in many ways the backbone of the staffing behind IE 2030. So I'll just call on folks as I see them on my screen. So I see Eric Calderon first.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Eric Calderon. I'm the Assistant Director here at the Center for Social Innovation. Pleasure to have you all. I help manage a lot of our communications, marketing. You might have gotten an email from me via Eventbrite today. I'm just excited to be part of this journey with you all. I'll pass it over to Gary, if that's okay.
Thanks, Eric. Hi, everybody. My name is Gary Repberg, and I'm the Research Manager at the center here. I've been involved with the IE 2030 project for a while now, and heading up the research on it and doing a lot of different things. So really excited to share with you all the project and what we've done so far, and to get some feedback and input from you all. So I will toss it over to Monica.
Hi, everybody. Monica Cardenas. I'm the financial analyst for the Center of Social Innovation. I'm mainly focused on our finances and helping with some of the ops.
I'm Fatima Nelson. I'm one of two community engagement specialists with the center and have been focusing a lot on youth initiatives, education, and even some community economic resilience projects. Welcome. Great to be here.
So let's go to America next, and I'll call on others. Go ahead, America.
Good morning, everyone. My name is America Valdin, and I'm one of the student assistants at the Center for Social Innovation.
Great. Thank you, America. So others, I'll go to Noemi because she's on our design committee and a recently elected official in the IE. Congratulations, Noemi.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning. I think it's still morning. Yes, my name is Noemi Hernandez Alexander. I am a trustee on the RUSD School Board, and I'm also a professor of political science and public administration. And I'm just happy to be with you all today.
Great. Thank you, Noemi. Next, Janie.
Hi, everybody. My name is Janae Bothgrag. I'm a faculty member at the University of Redlands. I teach in the School of Education, primarily clinical mental health courses and school counseling courses. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, licensed professional clinical counselor, and certified drug and alcohol counselor.
Thank you so much, Janae, and apologies for mispronouncing your name. Next, I see Johannes. Johannes, great to see you again.
Great to see you too. Yeah, I'm Johannes Munoz. I'm also at the University of Redlands. I teach global business, but I'm actually a trade economist by training. I currently study mostly the effects of automation on the workforce, specifically in the context of warehouses. So you probably, a few of the recent press coverage has caused a little bit of stir here. I hope that's not why I'm I was invited or I'll be thrown out for at some point. I also direct the Institute for Spatial Economic Analysis, where we do analysis on the small scale level of economic phenomena.
Excellent. No, Johannes, you've always been ahead of the curve in terms of telling us what's coming down the road, and it's happening faster than maybe many people anticipated. So thank you for being here. And then finally, I see Mike.
Oh, good morning. I'm Mike Cohode. I'm a professor of geography at Cal State San Bernardino. We're actually hosting a Amazon warehouse workers panel or seminar, not a seminar panel, like a community event on April 12th at noon at Cal State San Bernardino. So I can send some info out a little bit later about that. I'm interested in local social movements and regional geography of the Inland Empire, which is fascinating and rapidly changing.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for spending your time. We're recording this for those, we had a fair number of people express interest, but for various reasons could not attend today. So we'll just be sharing this recording with folks as they're able to join. Maybe I'll just wait a second to see if Jill Jensen is able to connect. Jill, we just got done with self-introductions, but if you could just introduce yourself and then we'll jump right into it.
Sorry, I had a difficult time finding my link. I was struggling for a while. Hello, everybody. My name is Jill Jensen. I teach at the University of Redlands in the business department, but very interested in local events, teaching on sustainability in the area and also the future of work and future of jobs. So very, very excited to hear this conversation.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for being here. I'm just going to actually, since we're doing this in real time, I realize there's one other framework that I'm going to add to the slides. I don't know who's driving the slides today, so if someone can start the screen share.
Eric is going to share the.
And I'll just say a little bit about myself. I think everyone introduced themselves. I'm a professor of public policy at UC Riverside. I direct the Center for Social Innovation. I also direct California 100, which I'll mention a little bit as part of the inspiration behind this. And happy to say more later on in the Q&A if folks are interested in what California 100 is. So let's go to the next slide, please. So we have a lot of partners in this work, and we're really grateful, in addition to individuals like Noemi, who's been part of our design committee. We also have several organizations that have lended their talent as well as their trust and confidence in the work that we do. Next slide. So our agenda today, we just did our welcome and introductions. I'll say a little bit more about IE 2030. Most of it we want to spend on the nuts and bolts of the task at hand, and we really hope that we can benefit from your individual and collective expertise. And then in terms of future engagement and involvement, we would love to have you involved in whatever way that you think you can fruitfully engage in terms of experts, in terms of facilitators, maybe even with students that you engage with. We really want to make this as wide and deep an effort in the region as possible. And then we can have time for Q&A and then closing in next steps. So let's go to the next slide. So in terms of what motivates some of this work, it builds on work happening elsewhere in the state and even in the country. So the first is California 100. And this is an effort that, I'm privileged to be the executive director of this. This is a statewide effort. It is run through the University of California system and Stanford. I'm the executive director. Henry Brady, who was the long-standing dean of the Goldman School of Public Policy, he's our director of research. Amy Lerman, who runs the People Lab at Berkeley, is our director of innovation. We have Allison Burke, who's the director of advanced technology, and she's at Stanford. And then Jesse Melgar, who, before he joined us as director of engagement, was Governor Newsom's press secretary and then communications director. So we have that in addition to 20 research centers throughout the state that have done this work. The 100 in California 100 stands for 100 years. So it's thinking about long-term futures, although I'll say that 100 years becomes very, very speculative. So we've been doing things more in the 20 to 30 year range. And really the California 100 work built on some of the earlier work we tried in this region with the 10-year visioning process. So really pleased to see the kind of funding and support and the talent we were able to harness in that. But in many ways, then some of the insights from there are coming and informing IE 2030. But I'll also say the stuff we're doing at IE 2030 is now going to go back into California 100 as we engage an intergenerational commission in terms of building a vision and roadmap for the state. So all that to say that it's part of the inspiration, but hopefully the work that we do here, not many people think of the Inland Empire as like ahead of the curve when it comes to this kind of work, but it truly is, and would love to, tap into your talent, but also acknowledge your involvement and expertise as we do this. Let's go to the next slide. Now, there's another effort you may have heard of. It's called FresoDRIVE, and this is in the Fresno metropolitan area and county, but really it's in the metropolitan area. The Central Valley Community Foundation, along with a bunch, like over 100 other stakeholders, came together and did a 10-year investment roadmap. And that's been a very influential roadmap. What they did is they took various initiatives that were already happening, but also initiatives that are like early stages, and they had a more comprehensive view of what community development needs to look like beyond, say, just economic development, focusing on a set of sectors. So it's a big plan that includes educational attainment, community well-being and health, as well as economic development and economic mobility. And they've been very successful, in coming up with that 10-year roadmap. They've set a coordinated agenda so that when individual entities apply for various grant opportunities, or when there are these federally competitive opportunities. So the Biden administration, for example, had a Build Back Better regional challenge. FresoDRIVE's work that it incubated on food innovation involving Fresno State and UC Merced was the only project that got funded in the state of California. And it was the biggest project that was funded in the entire country. So, and it makes sense, right? When you have a region that has a lot of different things going on, if it's not coordinated, it becomes less effective, right? When you apply for some of these major competitive grant opportunities, whether it be public dollars or private dollars. Let's go to the next slide. And then one final motivation relates to this framework called vital conditions. And, at the center and also through IE 2030, we've seen this. I've also seen it. I sit on a National Academies of Sciences committee on health equity and all federal policies, and saw this reinforced there as well. So these 7 vital conditions come out of the federal government's equitable long-term resilience and recovery framework, ELTRR. I think I got that acronym right. And that emerged during the pandemic with a set of broad framework development, stakeholder and scholar conversations across the country. And they came up with these 7 vital conditions for communities to thrive. And so this is something that we think, well, first of all, more and more federal agencies are starting to adopt this in terms of how they envision healthy communities, if you will, moving forward. And so this presents a promising opportunity for us to take all of the more conventional ways that we might think of as, housing and transportation and economic mobility and workforce and education, and to build it up into this framework. So this is not to say that it's the only framework that we will adopt. What we want to do is to disaggregate it into more discrete, smaller categories in the work that we do, and that's the survey that you've gotten. But as we build up a narrative, we want to be mindful with at least where some federal agencies are heading in terms of what might influence investments later this decade. So those are all part of our inspirations. So what is IE 2030? So if you've taken a look at our website, hopefully you found out a bit more about this. So our goal is to create a roadmap of a vision, as well as a set of strategic and synergistic investments, policies, and practices that can be used to coordinate our work internally, as well as our external quote unquote asks when it comes to investors, partners, and champions. So, we want to think about policies, but also investment plans, as well as changes in practices within agencies. And often it's not just about new investments coming in, right? When we talk even just about each of our counties, there are hundreds of millions of dollars that are being deployed every single year. And even if you just look at something like community health, right? In terms of the kinds of dollars, in terms of health and social services that are being deployed there. There are also major land use decisions that jurisdictions are making. So even quite apart from whatever we can do in terms of influencing what external actors do with respect to policies or investments, there's so much that we can do internally as well. So the hope is to create, we're using the term roadmap. It's not quite a blueprint. People could use the word blueprint, although that tends to be more rigid and prescriptive to help guide our work and coordinate our work, and really to be able to advocate more effectively. And to do that, we need as much diversity of thought and expertise and lived experience as possible. Next slide. So we've already begun the work. We had a session. Let's go to the next slide. We had a visioning session earlier. Actually, it's no longer earlier this month. We had it in mid-March. We had about 130 people, many of them leaders within nonprofit agencies, but also some government agencies come. And we did the first of these 4 steps, the visioning process, right? What does our ideal community look like for people, places, and the environment, and anchored in our core values? And I'll say a bit more about the core values that are animating this work. Next is the solutions part, and this is where you come in. There's so many different possible solutions, but we want your expert opinion on what are the kinds of solutions, public and private together, solutions that are being deployed right now, either within our region, say it's being tried out in a certain city. Say a certain city is moving forward with the universal basic income experiment. What do we know about it? Can we at least get a website or news coverage on that? Maybe it's outside of our region, somewhere else in Southern California or somewhere else in California. Or maybe it's something that's happening elsewhere in the country or even around the world. What we want to do is to get your considered judgments on these are things worth exploring. Not to say that we should adopt them, but we should explore them as something that's promising for us to look at. And what we will do based on what you put down in those survey responses, to then get our community to start scoring them. And Gary will go more into that in terms of the impact that people think it'll have generally, but also in particular communities. And then to also think about feasibility of these different solutions, right? To benefit from the wisdom of the collective in terms of things like political feasibility, administrative feasibility, and a whole bunch of other things. Feasibility gets us into this conversation about strategies, right? So we know what kind of solutions we might want to explore. What are the barriers that stand in the way? Or what are the opportunities, and how do we overcome the barriers and capitalize on the opportunities that we have? And then finally, we're talking about this as a kind of creative, innovative, and inclusive long-term strategic visioning and planning process. How do we go beyond just creating a strategy memo to actually get commitments? And this is where our partners come in, and hopefully we'll increase the set of partners so that it's not just, of course, we want to benefit from as much academic expertise as possible, but if we can start getting commitments from these public agencies and private organizations as much as we can, that just ensures a greater likelihood of success. So that's the 4-part process. Let's go to the next slide. So in terms of visions, I've mentioned this already, and we'll share this as a slide deck afterwards. So we want to develop a set of consensus goals that are ambitious and achievable in a 10-year timeframe, right? So if we want to use the metaphor of a summit, you'll see the Zoom images of summits on some of our backgrounds. Many parts of the IE, when the weather is good, you can usually see a mountaintop. You can usually see a summit. And in fact, we can see multiple summits. So part of it is like getting aligned on what is the summit that we collectively agree upon that we need to get to, right? And that's the visioning process. Let's go to the next slide. Next come solutions, right? And so the solutions are, what are all the different pathways that get us to the summit? So, people may disagree either in terms of priority or what should be done in terms of what the solutions are, but let's put all the solutions on the table. Doesn't mean that everyone has to go down the one hiking pathway up to the top. And in fact, some of the solutions may involve aerial paths, right, for people who may have differing abilities to be able to get to the top. I don't want to stretch this metaphor too much, but those are the kind of solutions, right, that we seek. And then let's go to the next slide. And then strategies, I've talked about that before, and then commitments as well. And that's yet to come. Let's go to the next slide. So the roadmap is all of this pulled together, and that'll be the the final document that we have, right, in terms of the vision, as well as the collection of solutions and strategies and the commitments that will get us there. Let's go to the next slide. So this is where we are today in terms of solutions work. And in fact, we are engaging with you before we engage this much larger set of community stakeholders in terms of refining and prioritizing the solutions. So let's go to the next slide. So for policy solutions, we are focused on these 12 topic areas. And if you haven't seen it already in the Google form that you got or in the attachment, we're covering a lot. And these are categories broadly defined. And maybe the broadest among them is probably health and well-being. Especially when you think about well-being, it's a pretty expansive category, but people might think of community development as fairly expansive as well. So these are our 12 topic areas. And if you're in doubt, if there's something that's missing, we would say just put it in the thing that seems like the closest fit, right? So for example, we don't specifically have workforce in here, but workforce would most likely go under economic development, unless the only aspect of workforce that you're interested in is education, then maybe education is the category. Don't worry so much about the categories because we're really trying to get a comprehensive list of solutions that we can. Oh, actually, you know what? Workforce is there. It's under labor and workforce. Okay, we have it covered. So hopefully we've covered most of what there is when we think broadly about community well-being and community development. Let's go to the next slide. And finally, the core values. This is an aspirational initiative. It borrows heavily from California 100, which initially borrowed heavily from IE Rise, right? And so those core values of resilience, inclusion, sustainability, and equity are critical. But we also want to have innovation there, right? Often our region is not thought about on the forefront of innovation, but we have so much innovation talent here. It's just it doesn't get elevated nearly in the same way, nor does it have the kinds of investments that are needed to strengthen and sustain those innovations. So I'm going to stop there. Before we get to Gary and the demo of the submission tools, maybe we can just stop the screen share for a second. If people have any thoughts or questions before we go into a demo of the task that we are asking you all to participate in. Okay, we can always come back to it after Gary does the demo on the survey tool that the expert survey tool that we're asking you to participate. So go ahead, Gary.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Karthik. So hi, everybody. Again, my name is Gary, and I'm the research manager at the center. As Karthik mentioned, we're looking for help to get as many viable policy solutions and options as we can from the local community and people with expertise for each of the 12 topic areas that we've identified. So we have a couple different ways that you can submit your policy ideas, kind of depending on your preference. And I just want to spend a couple minutes taking you through the process, just so you know what to expect. And, we can answer any questions that you might have. So first, I'd like to take you through the Google form version, which I think is probably the easiest and most efficient way to submit. And let me drop that in the chat, and then I will share my screen. All right. Okay. So this is the landing page for the Google form. It gives a little bit of background about the project, and it lists the 12 topic areas. Up front, we just have a couple kind of like demographic questions, but you really only need to provide your name, email, and if you'd like to be credited or if you would like to remain anonymous, we have an option to be listed on the website if you would like. And if you go next, so these are all broken up by topic area, by those 12 topic areas. So feel free to skip to whichever topic you're interested in. It's a really long survey. If you have a policy option for all of them, great, but you probably want to focus on a couple areas that you're interested in. So at the top for each, we provide a short summary about the topic. And then for each section, we also have an example solution, just for your reference of the kind of things that we're looking for. So you would then submit your policy solution in this space here. So, it doesn't have to be fully fleshed out, but as many details as you can include would be really helpful. About as long as the sample policy is totally fine. We ask if your policy idea has any specific target populations that you're interested in, to include that. And finally, if there are any existing examples of similar types of programs or ideas, either already happening in the IE at the state level or somewhere throughout the country. So if you have any web link references, the more details and references that you can provide, the better, because that's going to help with the kind of evaluation process that comes later on. So another way that you can do it, if you go back to the first page, sometimes people have difficulty accessing the Google environment, whether it's like, because of an organization or there are different privacy kind of things. So you can do the Word doc version, and I can just send that directly to you all, but you can also access it through the Google form. So if you click on this link, it's going to take you to a document that is essentially exactly the same. It probably will not show up on your end like this because I have it set to a view only. So you would have to go and download it. So that's why I'm saying, I could send it to you directly, or if you do it through the Google form, you can just download it as a Word doc. But it's set up the exact same way as the Google form. Just kind of in an outline. So the number 1 is the example that you see in the Google form. And then, so if, for instance, if you were going to submit an idea for an arts and culture policy, you would start where it's highlighted here for number 2, and then write down the different things, target populations and different examples and things like that. So then when you're done, you can just send it back to me. Obviously, if you have any questions or get stuck or anything, you can reach out to me. I'll drop my email in the chat as well. But if you can access the Google form, is kind of our preferred method because it's attached to a spreadsheet, and it's going to help us when we kind of do the impact and feasibility analysis stuff that Karthik is going to talk about a little bit later. So I'll just stop there, and if there are any questions on the submission form or process there, we can talk through that. And we also have there are different references on our website about this as well. So if you go to ie2030.org, and if you go to resources, you can find some different things. I dropped a few things in the chat, but we have different kind of regional research. We also have stuff about, Karthik's going to talk a little bit later about the impact that we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing some impact scoring, and then feasibility as well, kind of later on. But at this stage right now, we're just looking to collect as many policy solution ideas that we can. And we actually have a pretty good amount already, but we want to get kind of a diverse list and just get as much as we can from anyone that's in the community. So that is pretty much it. If there aren't any questions, I will stop the share and toss it back to you, Karthik.
Thanks, Gary. So folks, we've been doing a lot of presenting and talking. Surely you must have some thoughts and questions. So don't feel shy. I mean, you're all academics here. I've never known academics to be shy. So please feel free to unmute yourself, raise your hand, whatever. Would love to get your thoughts, including reactions too. We think we're hitting the right level of ambition and scale, and to make each of these steps manageable for folks, so that this is not a heavy burden to ask of people. I think the opportunity, we would love to showcase your talent as well. And so that's one of the questions we had, in the forum is, whether we can credit you generally for being an expert in this process, but also specifically if there are particular solutions that you want to attach your name to and be like, I think this is really important to also let us know on that. Johannes.
I'm so shy. I don't dare to be the first one. No, I just have a question a little bit about the timeline, because I could there are at least 3 projects that I'm working on that would like broadly fit in those categories, but these are actually academic projects that have no publication at this point, and so there's there's always this issue with academics if they work on something like right now, right here, but they don't have anything published yet. How how can we deal with that? Yeah.
So let me answer this question to just orient everyone. And this is like a good, I've kind of been in the space of public intellectual and public impact, and how do we do that? So the easiest way to orient everyone on this, I would say, is think of this as what you would talk about in an undergraduate class. So it's not necessarily your own research. So for example, Johannes, you work a lot on automation. So if we think about, kind of the kind of so-called robot tax, has that ever been implemented? I don't know, but you probably know if there's any jurisdiction in this world, right? I believe there's some European countries that are starting to move in this direction, right? To think about ways to either have dividends or taxes related to automation. So things like that is what I would say. But so it's more about not even a case study, but if you're like, here's an example, here's an idea, and here's a place, here are some pilots that are happening, and I'm going to put down some URLs for you to do some deeper digging. Our team can go and do that digging, but we need judgment calls from you. So what we want is actually your judgment.
Okay. I see. Thank you.
And self-promotion is okay. So if you're like, read my paper from 3 years ago, that's totally fine too.
Yeah, and it's like that was helpful, because there are issues that are specifically hitting the Inland Empire. I mean, what I'm working on, and there are potential solutions. We're doing literally just the legwork with the data right now. And so that's why I asked for the timeline. So, you wanted to have something by this Friday, if I remember it correctly. I won't be able to finish the paper by this Friday.
Oh, it's not, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and also to be very clear.
And also what's the timeline?
Yeah, so on this, I hate to say this, folks, but this would be like if a reporter called you and said, Professor, here are all these problems. So we're not even asking to help us analyze the scope and scale of the problem or what's already here or what's coming down the pike, but literally this is just about solutions. So if they say, Professor, is there something happening in this region that you think is interesting that should be looked at, or maybe something somewhere else in the country or even around the world, what should we look for in terms of solutions? So I would say if you can spend, and I will guarantee that what it will take hours and hours for our team to try to figure out within 30 minutes, like 3 or 4 solutions that you think are interesting or that have been proven. And you can send us links, because that's one other thing I would say is, what, this form, I don't know. I'm just going to put down 5 solutions and here's some links, go look at it. Gary, I think you put your email in the chat. Just email it to Gary and we will take it. So we just want to lower the barriers as much as possible for you. So Noemi, I see you next.
Yeah, that was actually, you answered my question, is the timeline and what exactly, just how complete of this idea it needs to be by Friday. I have more ideas than I do solutions, in the sense of having something to officially put on paper by Friday. So if you're accepting
Yes,
first iterations. I wanted to know if that was okay and just kind of go from there.
absolutely. Absolutely. Right. And so there are things, I mean, I'll give you, so for example, say someone is in the environment. I mean, we have a cap and trade system already in California, but if they're like, I think we need to have a carbon tax or a VMT kind of fee-based system on transportation. If ideal, so one, it could just be, check this out. The ask I would have beyond that is, look at the VMT kind of design in the city of London, for example, right? Or if there's one in a more kind of suburban area that's been tried, things like that. VMT, vehicle miles traveled, right? So that's kind of another way. If we're going to be transitioning to electric vehicles, then a gas tax isn't going to do it in terms of the wear and tear of the infrastructure to pay for that. So how do we do that? So these would be the kinds of examples. So I would say at the very least, it would help us to know, given your kind of expertise, what you think are promising ideas worth researching at the very least, if not pursuing. But if there's any references that you can throw in there about if it's being deployed anywhere, that's great. If not, that's fine. Just send us your kind of promising ideas and solutions worth researching and maybe worth pursuing. So, Janae.
Yeah, so I would define some of the work that I do as a scholar as like the scholarship of engagement, which is a little different maybe than some traditional scholarship. And so as a faculty member, I started a nonprofit under the U of R that's the Alliance for Community Transformation Wellness. It fits well with these projects in the intersection of mental health and wellness specifically. So like the expertise that I might bring is linked to kind of knowing some trends related to funding, what specifically I've been looking for. This is like pay dirt for me, right? Where I've been trying to find that right thing. Now there's a trend, trying to catch the right date. Oh, wait, there's an audience wanting to hear where I think this is headed and where all these cool art and development and employment and mental health and education intersections are. Let's, so, but like, does this preclude
Janae, that sounds
me?
like maybe you want to be on our design committee. That'd be awesome.
So then I'm like, but these are my ideas and these are projects in motion for me and things I've been trying to get off the ground that are like alive in the community in relationship with artists and making movement for families making money, earning money anyway, right? So then does it preclude me later when I see money coming down the pike to apply at federal levels or use relationships that I'm developing now? Or
not at all. No, this is perfect. I mean, first of all, I would say, please put down all of those things, even if they're small scale. I mean, here we are, right? Many of us, like tonight's the first time I'm meeting you. I think many of our team are meeting you, but like, that's part of the thing that happens in this region, right? I mean, we're as large as the state of South Carolina, right? In terms of geography and population. And there's so many different amazing things going on, but we have the opportunity here, I think, to better connect and then support. We would love through this platform to give, visibility to what you're doing, and then to be able to scale it up or to spread it, if it's in like particular geographic pockets in this region and others can consider it elsewhere. Both of those would be amazing. Cool.
thank you.
Any other thoughts? Jill, any thoughts that you'd like to share?
Well, I mean, it's wonderful to be here. I'm just kind of getting up to scale to all of this stuff. But when I saw the email, I was incredibly interested. I've been thinking about this idea of sustainable, jobs in the capacity of both sustainability for social sustainability, mental health, value in your life, all of the things that, people think that obviously they want out of jobs. And moving to the Inland Empire 10 years ago, here I am, was reading about this area, with the warehousing and all of these issues that it faces. But living here now for the last 10 years, understanding it from students' perspective, their parents, having taught a lot of Latinx, students that are at the University of Redlands, and I'm in the College of Arts and Science. So it's pretty much, the regular undergraduate population. And I just, on this idea of sustainable labor in the Inland Empire. So I'd like to maybe share some of the things that I have been teaching in my undergraduate classes and the things that students have been discussing and try and brainstorm on for the future. So I don't necessarily have anything that I can say specifically, but I'm really interested in hearing what everybody else is contributing to and staying in touch. And I do have a public policy degree as well, so thinking in those terms. So that's all.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, and Mike, let's see if you have any thoughts, and then we'll go back to Johannes. And then, in addition to, I would say if you can get it to us by Monday morning, that should be fine. And again, if you wanted, at least for this go round, I would say budget up to 30 minutes. Janae, you just have so much, but up to you in terms of using this opportunity. And then for everyone, quite apart from this, we would love to have you at our session on the 13th, but also have you join our design committee, because we're just trying to make something bigger happen. Think of our center as just trying to incubate something, but really, if we can bring the collective, not just intellectual power, but I think the care and concern that you are all bringing to the table, that's pretty amazing. And I'll say, actually, I'll do this one thing on a soapbox. And Jill, as you're talking about, kind of warehousing and logistics is what people think of as it has become the dominant kind of land use and economic development strategy in this region. What I say to other people is that, if you told me that there's a place in this country that has, a major public research university, 2 other major state universities that churn thousands of people that are getting degrees in STEM or STEAM or however you want to talk about the talent that is being pumped out. On top of that, all of these private colleges and universities that are top in the country, all within a 25 to 50 mile radius. I'm not sure that you would think that warehousing and cheap land is the kind of should be the basis of future growth and development. And yet here we are. But I think by basically, I think, organizing the human capital assets that we have in this region, I think we can't, at the very least, diversify what we do, if not create a new kind of dominant trend in terms of what this region can do in the future. So that would be my very big aspirational hope. But at least the more modest thing is let's bring people who have a lot of expertise in this and bring the community expertise in this and see what is our aspirational vision that is also realistic and achievable in the next 10 years if we put our collective minds and our collective efforts to get it done. So that's the hope. So very much aligned in terms of, and I think that's a lot of our students and young people. So many of them are from here and do not see, especially if they're going to get college degrees, do not see a future for themselves here. And I think we have an opportunity, hopefully, to at least point the way to a different kind of future. Mike, your thoughts, and then we'll go to Johannes, and then we'll at least stop the recording and for others to use and share. So deadline extended till Monday morning. So hopefully that helps. So Mike, any thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. I apologize for not sharing video. I just can't get it to work for some reason. So I'm very sorry. Yeah, I think it's a great initiative. I think that, over the last 20 years that I've been here, I'm sick of reading reports about the Inland Empire from outside the region. And I know that, I've been following your work, Catherine, for a long time. And I understand one of the reasons why it was the case because of the level of social movements within the region was pretty low, but it's been amazing now, the rise of community organizations and social movements in this region, led by mostly our students, graduates, is quite impressive. Whether you look at environmental groups or, you know, the Just San Bernardino initiative is a big deal, I think, that, you know, to tap into as well. But you know, for me, what fascinates me about this whole idea is not as much bringing in ideas about what to do in this region. I think all of those groups already know what to do, you know, about the issues in this region. I think the main issue for me are the barriers to that, because you have some pretty entrenched interests in this region. Like, think of the Inland Empire Economic Partnerships and all those people, you know, including the only person who everybody cites for anything that goes on in this region, which is of course the famous economic guru that works for the Inland Empire Partnership, right? So my interest, or at least my take on all of this, is like, what are the barriers? And let's knock some of those down, because there's some really strong countervailing forces that are preventing all these good ideas from improving the lives of the people in this region.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, and a lot of what you said definitely resonates. I mean, I would say, I think you're right, it's mostly about strategies, but you know, sometimes it's also the solutions. I mean, at least one of the critiques I've heard is that many community groups are opposing things, but are not actually producing a solution on an alternate solution in a way that is not just hopes and dreams, but to say, like, if you had to come with a proposal and say, okay, like, I want you to use your, you know, infrastructure dollars that's coming down for this, like, to get super concrete, right? In terms of, these are monies that you're already deploying, or these are decisions or activities that you're already incentivizing in this way. But here's a potential employer, or here's a potential activity that is resourced at this level. But if you have this kind of a funding, so anyway, to start getting more concrete with those solutions. But you're absolutely right in terms of what the analysis of the existing problem and what a different thing might be. I think a lot of that is there, but it's like often a lot of things. Community often usually knows what the thing is. Academic research, if it can be brought to bear, or if not research, but even judgment calls. If we say that we ultimately imagine that we spread this work and we have like 50 researchers from across the region that are all in, first of all, getting 50 researchers to agree, I mean, that would be a miracle. But imagine we all agree on a common set of, that would be powerful, I think. But really the muscle, you're right, comes from community, and hopefully that this will be, you know, work alongside with that, but hopefully can also influence, right, investment decisions that people make. I'll kick it over to Johannes. My son here is asking me something, so I'm going to go off camera for a second. Johannes, over to you.
Okay. Yeah, I actually just had a question. I don't know whether anyone can then answer that, and that is, yeah, how about scenarios? You know, like, I mean, there are certain future scenarios that we don't know whether will kick in or not, but we consider likely at this point. Shall we include suggestions, potential solutions for that? Just to give you an idea, one of the big discussions right now, as you all know, is whether we'll hit peak warehouse and then what's happening thereafter. And so, because, I mean, warehouses have been one of the major job creators specifically over the last 5 years. So is that something that is of interest, or is that something that shouldn't be included? And Mike, I'll be happy to actually comment on some of the things that you said, but maybe that's for later.
Yeah, Johannes, I can jump in. Yeah, that would be great. I mean, like kind of Karthik mentioned earlier, you know, we don't have particular expertise in each of these topic areas. We're kind of more generalists in the research that we do, but like trends like that, like what you're talking about, possible future scenarios, that's definitely some stuff that we need to know. And that would be really helpful when we put together the kind of like the final roadmap. So, like there are, obviously like different options for the future. We don't know, we can kind of guess. But if you have ideas about, the way things are going or specific trends in those topic areas, that would be very, very helpful for how we construct the document. So yes, it definitely.
Okay, folks, we have some handyman folks here who showed up a bit early, so I need to go. But I think we've gotten covered most of the ground. What I would say is that we would love to have you engaged beyond this this phase. I'm happy to talk more later, and if there's interest, with a lot of these kind of trends that we're talking about, even scenarios, I've been kind of neck deep in that work with various research teams across the state on that. So if there's interest, and especially maybe over the summer where people have a bit more time and bandwidth, would love to do like a little bit of training and mutual learning too, and maybe build up that capacity, not only with everyone on this call, but especially if we're going to engage students and other community partners too in the work. Cool. So I'm going to jump in, then Gary, if you can talk about the kind of the next steps in the process, that'd be great.
Yep, that sounds good. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention. So, we mentioned California 100 earlier, but some of those future things that Karthik was referencing, they have a couple different reports and things about future trends and research on some different topic areas. So I just dropped that link in the chat just for your reference. So let me pull up and see here. So kind of next steps. So right now, I wouldn't worry too much about this, but so essentially after we collect all of these policy solutions and ideas, we're going to be kind of going through them and reaching out to the community again in terms of trying to kind of score and rank these different policy solutions on both impact and feasibility. And, it's a very kind of complex process. So we're not looking to do a kind of full-blown policy analysis for each of these things, but in terms of ultimately, like what ends up in the document at the end, those types of ideas and policies, we want to have some kind of way to score and think about, like how feasible this policy is and what possible impacts they would be. So we're still kind of working out. What's on the screen right now is just kind of something that we mocked up just as an idea. But actually what we're going to do is split the sessions. So we're going to do one session on kind of impact first. We're going to talk through that, and then we're going to do another session kind of on feasibility. And we're going to do similar outreach to kind of get as many different voices and diverse opinions as possible as we can. But kind of immediate next steps. So Eric, you can just go to the next the last slide. So again, there's the bit.ly link for you all for the solutions. If you have any problems accessing, just feel free to email me directly, or I can send you the Word doc version. We're going to be going through this process. So ideally, it would be great to get everything by close of business on Monday. But if there's stuff that you think of later or references, feel free to send it my way, because we'll definitely use it as we're compiling all this stuff too. And it's just good to connect with everybody. Honestly, sometimes, we talk about silos all the time here in the IE, right? But it's nice to be on a call with, other universities and higher ed institutions in the region. We don't really mingle too much, out there in the world. So it's really nice to meet you all and to talk and get your perspectives on these things. So coming up next week, we have a session on different solutions. So we're going to be kind of talking through some of the solutions that we're compiling. So like I mentioned earlier, we already have a lot of different ideas. So we're kind of in the process now of combing through them and kind of figuring out, like what different things we could do as part of the discussion for the solutions. So that's going to happen on April 13th at 9. So if you're available to join, we'd love to have you. And we're going to send out a detailed agenda and some more information probably by the end of the week. Because we have there's a lot of different ideas, and some of them are in better shape than others and different things. So we're going through the process right now of kind of combing through those. So that's what we'll be doing. But I think that is pretty much it. So if anyone else has any questions or remarks or anything else, if not, we can end a couple minutes early. But I just want to thank you all for taking the time. I know it was kind of a last minute request. We tried to get as many people as we could, but really glad that you all were able to join us and to provide your perspectives and information. So thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks for the invitation.
Thanks,
Yeah,
everyone.
Oh, go ahead,
Thank
Eric.
you, Gary.
I'll say we'll follow up with the recording and some resources afterwards. So just really thanks everyone for joining us, and hopefully you can join next week. But if not, we're happy to engage with you. Of course, for the next year as this process unfolds.
Yeah, any kind of engagement you can. Obviously, there are a lot of time constraints, and you all are very busy. So whenever you can pop in, whenever you your level of engagement, we'd love to have you. So thank you so much again.
Oh, and finally, I know someone mentioned earlier about an event happening in Cal State San Bernardino. If there are other events you would like us to help promote or engage with, we also have newsletters that go out to community folks. So we're always just trying to have a pulse on what's happening across the region, across our campuses. So please let us know if there's anything that's happening across the region. We'd love to help promote it and get it to people's hands.